so delighted that you are here today with us, and we're talking about how to increase manager commitment to employee engagement. And in fact, we've entitled this entire series, Reenergize Your Employee Survey, because at times things can get stale. Things can work so well the first year that, gee, let's do it the same the second, the third, the fourth. But to keep it fresh, you know, every part of an organization looks at itself and says, how can we make it fresh? How can we make it new? How can we get people real excited? So from that perspective, we're talking about your employee survey. If it's an engagement survey, opinion survey, but a survey where you're asking for input from your employees. Now, if you looked at the invitation, you'll have seen that my title is Chief Engagement Enthusiast, and I have the luckiest job in the world, talking with organizations every day about their engagement, how to help them drive that. So I'm thrilled with that, and at the end of the session, if we have time, I'll share with you my personal why I'm so kind of excited and what makes me so excited about engagement. So as we get started, the first thing I'd like to do is ask you a question. Where are your managers on this continuum? And so we've got 5 different categories. So think about your managers, and just for the time being, let's think about them below vice president. So it's those that are either passionate, that they really are excited about it. They're just you're the people that really talk about it. Good soldiers, do the right thing, even if they're not fully invested. And then you've got those with good intentions, skeptics, and then those vocal dissenters that they haven't bought into engagement and they feel it's a waste of time. So what I'm going to ask is, if you think about your leaders, now I put a dividing line in, and think about the percentage that are either passionate or good soldiers. What percent of those leaders, from team leaders on up through directors, up to but not including vice presidents? And we're going to have a poll. I'm going to ask Scott to get that. Think about that percentage. And what I'd like you to do is record, closest to the nearest 10%, what percent of your leaders do you believe are either passionate or good soldiers about seeing the value of engaged employees and how to create more engaged employees through your initiatives? So indicate which it is. Just give us an idea as the people on the line where you see yourselves. So looks like we're getting folks in. People are starting to record. We're going to move fast here, so we're just going to give you just a few more seconds, and then we're going to close the poll. All right, let's take a look, Scott, at the results. We've just got a few more seconds left to go. WebEx is making sure that we have about 10 more seconds, and then we'll get it started. Very interesting results you're going to see. And with that, you'll see that they are all over the board. We've got the highest percentages at 50%, but boy, it is a flat bell curve, where as high as 80%. Congratulations to those folks that believe that. And then there are some that as little as 10% are good soldiers and passionate. It's all over the board, probably a reason why you might have wanted to take in this webinar. So, let's see how your percentage compares to a profile of our clients, and I think you're going to be surprised. We took a profile of one of our large international diversified manufacturing clients, and we wanted to see how many of the people in that organization are engaged that they have expressed in their survey. Now, we start out by showing you about non-managers, all non-managers, and if you look at these categories of highly engaged is 5.2%, engaged is 34.5%, and then you can see partially engaged is almost half, and then disengaged. And these are recorded based on an approach we use and a number of our clients do called pattern of response. Based on how they answered a set of engagement questions, we are able to say if they answered a certain way with agree or strongly agree, they get categorized in one of those categories. So in this case, only 40% are highly engaged or engaged. Well, now let's take a look at the other side, those vice presidents and above, and you should expect, as we would, most of them in this organization, and this organization works very hard at engagement. Almost two-thirds of the vice presidents have self-classified themselves as either highly engaged or engaged, and only 6.9% are essentially checked out. They are not, they're not engaged. But now, what do you think those managers in between? Well, as we look at the data, you might not be surprised, it is about split halfway between those two. And in fact, about 50% of your managers below vice presidents are either engaged or highly engaged, and 50% are disengaged or only partially engaged. And when we look at that, we think about if you want to gain people's commitment to engagement, if they themselves aren't that excited and engaged, how likely are you going to get them to support the initiative, to support the sharing of results in a passionate way, taking on action planning? Very difficult. So as organizations look at engagement initiatives, taking a look at your leaders and making sure that you do everything you can to get them engaged, and that's why what we're talking about today, it's so vitally important. And in fact, if only 50% are engaged, you know, if you really want a highly engaged environment, you can't get there from here. You need to take you need to be more, get a higher percentage. But trust me, there is hope. So if I think about it, and have you think about it, what impact would it have on your employee engagement initiative if all your managers were passionate or good soldiers? You know, your managers would be clamoring for results. Your teams would be excited about working on ways to improve engagement because they know that it's going to help their work environment as well as their productivity. But how hard is it? How hard would it be to do that? I know that probably everyone on the phone does something to try to build that commitment, but let's look at it from a kind of an impact effort perspective. What would the effort be if you wanted to try to strive for a much higher percentage of your managers being engaged or highly engaged, and what would the impact be? And I think we'd all agree that it would have a high impact, but it would probably take a great effort to do it. But let's make progress on that today. Let's examine this issue from some new perspectives and give you some tools that you can use to begin to move that percentage of your managers, whatever it is today, higher in the passionate and good soldiers. And what we're going to do is we're going to take an innovation lens. A lot of times, I mean, organizations today, probably all of you have an initiative around innovation and product innovation and process innovation, and let's turn that attention to our own employee engagement initiative. And what I'm going to use is some tools and techniques from a leadership course from Development Dimensions International, DDI. They've been gracious enough to allow me to use that. And it's a course they have for their first and second level leaders called Fostering Innovation. And what I want to do is give you a couple techniques from there, and then we're going to get you involved. So the first innovation technique we talk about is see managers as your customers. Today, more than ever, the best organizations are really thinking about their customers' experience, aren't they? Aren't you? Helping that customer, what is the experience of buying products, getting support, answering questions if they have issues. But now let's think about that same mindset of focus on our customer, and everyone here on the call, think about the managers as your customers when you're doing an employee engagement initiative. What would be different? So there are 3 questions in this technique that you can ask, and you can ask those managers. The first, what extra steps do our customers, in this case our managers, have to take to use our product or service? What's the product or service? It's the employee engagement, measuring the initiative, communicating the initiative, taking action, sharing results. What are the extra steps they take? Second, what do we do that delights our customers? What do we do in this initiative that will delight managers? Now, some of you may be thinking, Mark, nothing delights them. Boy, it's a survey. They've got to get time out of their day to share results and action planning. Let's think about that delight question, though. And the third in this technique is, what is the real pain our customers feel? Now, these are three great questions, and we will have a recording of this webinar, and you'll be able to have these questions. I'd encourage you to get a group of your managers together and ask them these questions. Just get lots of flip chart paper ready, get ready for answers, but you're going to have to ask it more than once, because people get a little timid when they think about, do you really want to know? And the one question I'd like to, of these three that we can answer here today with some certainty, I believe, is this last one. What is the real pain our customers feel? So think about managers as customers. What I'm going to ask you to do is type in the chat panel, and so if the chat panel isn't open, it's on the right. It's a blue bar that says chat, and so go up to that little triangle. If you don't see the space below it, click on that little triangle, and ask what in their daily work, what's the real pain? If you went to them and said, what's really painful about your job? What is preventing you from doing your job well? And there are two things I'd like you to think about. One is their work in the engagement initiative. What about the initiative is painful, if anything? What's hard about communicating results, getting reports, getting action plans, but also about their job outside of that? I'm sure you hear, each of you hears from managers that talk about their job, maybe it's goals and productivity results, but put in the chat some of those things that you would say are the pain that people feel every day. Dave, too busy. I see that coming in. Kim, stretched too thin, already too busy. I think we're getting a pattern here. Marina, feel overworked and don't have enough time to get everything done, not enough time, underappreciated. It's painful for them to find the extra time in the day to share results and action plan. Perfect, Kathy. Susan, workload too heavy. Lots and lots of different ways that people have around of their pain. But learning their pain is the first step in an innovation process of understanding your customer and trying to work within that. So once we have the answers to these questions, and I know a lot of them come out around time, and that's okay. Certainly there are others as well. We now shift, and there's another technique that we can use to try to seek answers to these questions around whether it's painful, whether it's about their too many meetings I see. I like that, Julie. So as we think about those things, we're going to look at a technique about what's called framing. And every one of these challenges that the pain, the challenge they have is really an opportunity for us. It's an opportunity for us as HR professionals. It's an opportunity within engagement to see how can we help drive and help them improve. So it's an opportunity, and the technique is you need to phrase that opportunity in a strong, specific, open-ended question, something that has a natural, positive orientation. Here's an example of what that would be. So if you have those managers together and you ask them that pain question, among others, one way is you ask managers, what else could we do as we're trying to improve engagement? What could we do? What else could we do to help you connect engagement to your daily work? Instead of an extra task, what can we do to link those? Help them understand. Obviously, they should understand, if you've communicated, that engaged, excited employees do better. But ask them, how do you connect that engagement to work? How do you make it, what else can we do to make it easier for you to understand your results? Not just thinking what we think, but what do they think would make it easier to understand. You might be surprised at the kinds of things that they may tell you about their results. Or, what else can we do to help you create meaningful action plans? It's a great, people having action plans, they may go, gee, I don't even know where to start, or I know what to do, but I don't know how to measure it and keep track of it. How do I make it so my employees are engaged about this? Lots of different things. And when you ask these questions, don't ask once. Ask at least 3 times. There are some people that when you ask once, they don't know if you're serious or not. Do you really want to hear? Do you really want to know the answer? But if you ask a second time, you might get some volunteering. But if you thoughtfully ask it a 3rd time, and it might sound silly, but you'd be surprised how many people will open up and say, okay, you really want to know what'll help me? Well, if you could do it this way, or this approach, or could you give me more time here, or make it easier there, or I wish my manager were here to do this or that, you might be surprised at the response. And I guarantee you're going to get ideas on how to reshape your initiative to gain that commitment. To gain it up front around connecting it in the daily work, as well as in the process itself. But I guarantee you'll be surprised. So these are some great techniques. Again, you're going to have these recorded. I also now want to go to we have one more before we jump. We're going to jump to share some ideas that our clients, client organizations have used. And before we do that, we have a quick second poll that I'd like to share. And it has to do with, it's a poll that we are asking in many different venues. We're going to be at a number of conferences. We're going to be at SIOP in a few weeks, at the new ATD conference in mid-May, and a number of others. We're going to be asking people this question. And it has to do with all aspects of engagement initiatives, and we'd love to get your input. So it's a question that is around, to improve employee engagement, which of these 4 challenges do you feel is your organization's most difficult to overcome? In most organizations, they're all challenges, but pick the one that you feel, if you had a wish list, the one that's really difficult that you'd love to be able to solve. So I'll give you just a little bit of time to give us some answers. This is if you're going to be at SIOP, we're actually going to start sharing our results. So at the very beginning of that conference, you're going to see results similar to what are on this that we're going to share today. And this is anonymous, so we're not going to be sharing your names, but we'd just like to get an idea of which of these is the hot button. So the poll is closed. We're going to share results just to give you an idea. About a third said changing behaviors. So your culture is actually can change. Excellent. Can be more engaging. So thank you for that. Appreciate that information. And certainly one is getting people more excited to only 3%. Maybe the tips we already shared are ones that give you more confidence there. So excellent. Thank you. So now we're going to move to, I'm going to share 3 things, and I think they're easy ways to improve manager support and commitment, and then we're going to turn it open to you. You've gotten your input at the beginning of the session. We'll give you another opportunity to share maybe some special things you've done in your organizations that others would benefit from. So the 3 ways that we're going to share. The first that our clients have said is make sure your survey has strong face validity. And those of you that are statisticians on the call, and I know we have a couple, might say, Mark, face validity isn't true validity at all. You know, it isn't criterion of validity or content or construct. But what it is that it says, does it have face value? Does it appear to be a good set of survey items? If your survey has questions that people are arguing about or that doesn't believe that you're going to get the data you need, it won't have strong face validity, and it will be hard for managers to commit to it. So for instance, if you ever get questions like from managers that say, well, some of these questions don't apply to my group, that can be a tough one to answer, because maybe if you make sure those survey items are correct. How's about another one? My staff was confused, or is confused when they answer the question about my manager. I mean, I love this one because if you have a general question about supervisors, you know, every manager says, well, it wasn't me they were talking about, it was somebody else. It was the team leader, or it was my boss they were talking about, especially if the scores are good, they'll say it's them, right? but if it's not good, they might say it's somebody else. Another one is, I don't understand the index calculation, or, how did that number come up? Boy, I don't understand. Or where did those norms come from? Those kinds of questions can be very difficult because they distract people from the goal. The goal is you want to create a more engaging environment, not debate an index calculation. So number one is really take a look at your instrument and say, are these questions do they look like the kind of questions managers can support and buy into? Because if they don't, chances are they're going to be checking out and checked out and not be able to support you as much as they could. So we really encourage you to do that. A second is, when it comes to results, please keep it simple. And what I mean by that is that, extensive analyses have their place, especially with the team that's dedicated to analyzing and poring over your study results. But for regular employees, keeping it simple helps them focus on the end goal. Just keep focusing on the end in mind, is that you want to help them create better and more engaging environments for their staff and for themselves. Keeping it simple, what's happening more and more is the trend is toward dashboards. Quick hit areas. This happens to be one that's shaped almost like the new Microsoft Windows is, where there's lots of different things going on. But in today's world, that can be really engaging to managers. They can see what they want to see and where they're going to go, but just different ways to look at that information. Great first glance, kind of a quick look. Second is really help them focus on what are the few things that are really strong in that group and what are opportunities to improve. If there's way too much data and they're looking at, gee, I'm not sure where I should look or what I should focus on, they're taking a lot of time and energy doing that, and their team is going to get distracted. They're going to lose interest, and it might be a demotivator. So we encourage you at best to get out a quick look at what are the most likely opportunities and strengths. Opportunities to improve, kind of where they're weak, as well as strengths, and absolutely tie that to those drivers of engagement. What are the things that most highly are likely, if they're high, will drive that engagement of the group that much higher? So, which leads to the third easy way to increase commitment. And that third way is statistics alone are not enough. You must engage the heart. Now, a lot of people talk about engaging the heart, but let's dig in just a little bit. When I think about the heart, it's about going above and beyond. It's about having pride in what you do and who you work for. Should we do whatever we can to engage those managers, help them? One of the ways I think about engagement is, there are so many people in today's world. There's a lot of people that are overweight. Those same people, many of them, every day walk into their bathroom and step on the scale. They don't like what they see, and then they step off and go on with their work. And most of those people don't change their behavior. Statistics alone rarely change behavior, and that can go for lots of different analogies, whether it's a person's cholesterol, whether it's their blood pressure, or whatever. It's very hard for statistics alone to move and change behavior, that you need to be able to connect with the mind, give them a reason. We have 4 tips today on how to engage the heart, and some of these I'm sure you do already, and none should be a big surprise. But the first is ask respected leaders in your organization to tell their story, and record it if you can, because you rarely get the opportunity to share it with all of them at one time. A few years ago, I was working with a reinsurance company. Almost everyone in the room were actuaries, and we were sharing a half-day session of sharing results, and the CEO was introducing the session with his senior team. And I had told him just moments before, I said, it would really be helpful if you just share, what does engagement mean to you? I was overwhelmed by what he shared. He shared a personal story of his growth and career development and how important it was that engagement and getting high morale was to his success. And it was the best way to start the session. So let them tell the story. Give your leaders opportunities, because that's a positive role model that will really gravitate to with all the other managers, especially that 50% that's partially engaged or disengaged. Second, enlist and encourage your passionate leaders. Find those people who are always doing, not just good soldiers, but they're the ones who are, they buy into this. They know that engagement is a strong motivator. Get them, help them become your champions out there. Get more and more people to be able to really be seen and be behind the offering. Then collect and share successes. You know, when people are, whether it's ones that are successes that happen before the engagement survey or through action planning. In a different client, a large healthcare organization, we had one part of the organization had incredibly high engagement in one area around meeting management and the efficiency that they do work. And I asked them in a session, are you doing anything different? And the leader sheepishly stood up because it was with their peers, but she said, yes, we make sure that every meeting is focused, every meeting has an agenda, everybody is on point, everybody contributes, and the whole rest of the group heard that. What a difference that makes, and it made in her results. So collect, share, and share stories. Last, and it's been a theme here, make it personal. Make it personal for your managers. What's in it for them? Why should they care that this is important? Will their days be any less busy if their people are more engaged, if they're more able to take on projects that the manager thought that he or she had to take on? Make it personal for them. Find out what really excites them and do that, and it can really make a difference in engaging the heart. Now, there's one other point that I'd like to make, and it has to do mainly with senior leaders as we kind of wrap up the formal part of this webinar. And that is, when it comes to senior leaders, and I just read a new book that came out from Kim Jansen. The book is Demystifying Talent Management. And for any of you that have, whether it's line managers or new people in HR that don't know how the whole talent management picture fits together, Kim does a nice job of pulling lots of pieces in a very short, concise way of putting the story together of how did this all fit together. But she had a comment about CEOs and senior leaders. Many CEOs and senior leaders view talent management in terms of cost and return on investment. And, you know, as much as we think these are valuable, they ask, do we really need it? Whether it is engagement or a new selection system or the way you select high potentials, the performance management system, leadership development, whatever the talent, whatever the initiative is, do we need it? What's the least amount of time and attention we can afford and still make it worth our effort? And I'll bet I see some heads shaking. So if we want to engage senior leaders, we absolutely need to tie our initiatives, including engagement initiatives, to business metrics. I know it's hard. I know it's not easy. There are ways to do that. And in fact, our fourth webinar will talk about some of those ways that we have to tie business metrics to engagement and how that works. So as you look at the webinars in the series, the fourth one talks about the real impact, getting that business case for impact. So just always keep in mind your CEOs and senior leaders and what's on their mind, and speak to that. So as we wrap up, we have a question that Scott raised for those early birds that jumped on, and the question is, and we're going to ask any of you to chime in with your chats, and then we'll start sharing, but what are the best ways you found to increase manager commitment? So in the chat panel, please enter those, and what we'll do is we'll collect those chats, and for all of you that have logged in, we will send those out to you as a summary. We'll take the names off and send them out so that people can respond. So some of the responses that came in, tying it to strategic goals. Leah, thanks for that. Sarah and Dave talked about making a personal connection. Fantastic. The more you can connect personally, the better, including metrics. I love to see that, Lindsay. Also, Kim talked about good metrics. Fantastic. We had one of the people that shared earlier that couldn't be on the call. She said her organization asked managers to hold a town hall meeting where they share results. Now, that's nothing special, but here's the special part. The expectation is every manager has to take on a personal engagement action item that they personally will do, and please for the team to hold them accountable to make improvements on that one issue. So there might be one that's low that a manager looks in the mirror and says, you know what, this isn't a team issue, it's me. It's how I do things. And being able to commit to doing it different, that personal commitment, that personal accountability is a powerful way to get people's buy-in. Others that are out there, another one that we've heard is that was beforehand was that they collected the initiatives that in a database in advance so that managers, and they collected them over the years of what worked for managers, and then they shared that later so that people could refer to those and get ideas on what worked in other groups. Here Dave talks about before teaching engagement, make sure that participants experience engagement appreciation. Oh, how true. We do a letter from home exercise. Oh my. For our managers in training, as an example, a letter from home. Boy, I'd love to hear more about that. That sounds like a great way to connect with people and really bring it home so that they realize how important engagement is. And in fact, Dave, that as we're wrapping up, you know, and I talked about, I foreshadowed for me, what gets me excited is that all of us on the call here would be the same, but I get excited about getting up and coming to work every morning because if I do my job right, more leaders in more organizations are able to be more excited about their work, and the associates that report to them and are around them will sense and feel that. So if we have more engaged and highly engaged bosses, more people go home at night feeling good about work. And when they go home feeling good about work, that's just not, it doesn't end when they punch out each night. That impacts their family life, that impacts their family members. They're more likely to be engaged with what their family's doing. They're not frustrated because things didn't go well, or they got some negative feedback right before the end of the day and it wasn't fair and this and that. Engaged organizations are able, those associates actually can, it can impact, you know, far beyond work, and to me that's something that really is exciting. So I also see that for that letters from home, Dave, thank you for that, to engage hearts. They start at the top and they have their senior execs write a letter based on what matters most to each of their direct reports. And then those leaders do the same thing and they trickle it on down to frontline leaders. Thank you, Dave. What a great way to personalize engagement and bring it home for people. So fantastic approach. With that, I'm going to open it up for other questions. You've got the Q&A panel, or if you want to use the chat panel, we'll monitor both. But if there are other questions that you have about manager commitment or any aspect of engagement, let's just open it up for questions. Marina, how do I get my managers to realize that our associate engagement is an important aspect daily and not just 2 weeks before the actual survey is scheduled? Oh my, that's a great question. In fact, I've been in organizations where that 2 weeks before, it's exactly what happens. They go, oops, we got to get that action plan done. One of the things we're going to talk about in the third webinar in the series is the whole idea of changing behavior. And I'll at least give you one tip from my perspective on response to your question, is that when action plans are just activities or things that people need to do to get it off their plate, it's a check a box. The likelihood nothing will change. And if nothing changes, then all it was is at the very best, it's an exercise. At the worst, it's a waste of people's time. Because people in the department say, this is just an exercise, it won't change. We won't be getting better feedback than we did before, or our team won't collaborate any better. So my encouragement is look for action plans that are behavior-changing action plans. Behavior meaning behaviors of leaders and associates, because associates have responsibility for their own and their peer engagement as well. But certainly managers, quite a bit of it falls on managers' shoulders. So being able to look at those action plans and say, will this change behavior, and get the manager of the leader involved, their boss, so that they can help encourage that and make it a long-term. So that action plan is something, ideally it is something that should be a daily activity, something that changes. And part of it is asking, holding accountable those leaders to make those changes. But it starts with action plans that are as meaningful as possible. But it's a tough area. It's a tough question for sure. Another question we have, we're considering an instant feedback response mechanism based on the responses to the survey. What are your thoughts, pros and cons? Instant feedback response mechanism. So this response would come back to the survey taker immediately after they complete the survey. So my sense is that it sounds to me like I complete my survey, and if I've answered in a certain way, I get feedback that says, gee, you seem to be low in a certain area, here are some tips. I get a sense that might be some kind of instant feedback. In general, I think that it can be absolutely positive if you can give people feedback. I believe that that's one way, and I believe there are other ways as well. I do believe in some organizations we miss the whole peer-to-peer accountability. For instance, if we're working together side by side and the person next to me is not pulling their weight, and you know what, everybody in the department knows it. When you have somebody who's not pitching in, not doing their part, whether they're the wrong person for the job, whether they're their mind is somewhere else, whatever, great organizations are ones where peers go and have that early conversation. They say, come on, Scott, I'll mention Scott, come on, Scott, can you know, 3 times in the last month you asked for help. Nobody else asked for help for that, and I don't see your workload being any higher than others. You know, we all need to improve. We all need to get these projects done in order to reach our goal. How can is there anything we can do to help you and get people to be more accountable to each other? Is a great way and to me that is not necessarily just immediate feedback for that person, but it's that, dare I say, a little bit of peer pressure, peer accountability, and helping people see that everybody's got some responsibility for their own engagement. If I always see things glass half empty, chances are I'm going to be not the person people want to be around, and it's hard for me to pull myself out of that funk. So I think that's the one thing about getting it immediate. Can a person really pull themselves out if they've just been very disengaged and feedback? Chances are they're not looking for advanced advice right there. They're just looking to give feedback. But I think that the whole peer accountability is huge, and one that we like to talk about with our client organizations as well. Got any others that are out there? Any questions?
This came in earlier here, Mark. Go ahead and read this while I'm looking over a couple other responses. While you're looking at that one, I think it came in one of the early slides. I had a couple questions around getting the slides and the recordings for the webinar. Yes, we will send the recordings and the slides out to all of those who attended today. So thanks for attending.
Yeah, the question that was brought up, I think, had to do with one of our slides that we had around where we talked about the engagement levels of different levels of people, and is that action planning, or is that and let me share this, and I'm a little bit guessing, but when I pull this data together, this is the engagement of each of these groups. It isn't their commitment to engagement. It is possible that you have a manager who's only partially engaged themselves. They have issues. They wouldn't recommend it as a place to work. They won't go above and beyond, but they still follow through because their boss tells them they better do action planning, and they somehow get the job done. Conversely, you could have someone who's engaged or highly engaged, and they go, hey, I'm so engaged at work, I don't have time for this action planning. My team is so excited. Our scores are high. I don't want to even break stride. It's possible. And these are two different concepts, but to me, if you've got people who themselves are saying, I'm not buying it. I myself am not getting what I need out of this employment, out of this job. I might stay here because of salary or because of other reasons, but the more that people are committed themselves, the more likely, and they reflect it in engagement, far more likely they will be able to be committed to it, support it, be a champion, and be able to follow through and get that higher levels of engagement. So with that, I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And just remember, we have, here is the program code for those of you that are getting the certification, and you can jot that number down for that 1 hour of credit. Thank you for that. Glad to see that that's valuable. Also, there are 3 other webinars that are in the series that we'll share that coming up in late April, in June, and July. Love to have you jump on as well for that. And when you leave this, you will be asked, we are all about feedback, and we'd love to have this very, very short feedback survey about your impressions, what you thought about the webinar, so that we can make the next ones even more engaging. So with that, Scott, anything I've forgotten? Otherwise, we'll I appreciate everyone. And
I think that's it. The only thing, the registration for Part 2, equipping your managers, bosses, and HR business partners to be better coaches, that registration page will pop up right after the survey, right after this event. So if you could take the survey and register for the next event, that would be a win in our book.
Fantastic.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.